This video begins Book 5 of the Aeneid. Within this book, we encounter a few new characters, some that are not necessarily major players in the advancement of the plot, but they are worth noting. Gyas, Manethus, Cloanthus, and Sergestus are captains of the teams that play in the funeral games with Aeneas and his men. Nisus and Euryalus are two men to note. They are devoted friends of one another, youth in the Trojan army traveling with Aeneas, but they also are more than friends. They're almost like a band of brothers, and they look out for one another. And while they are looking out for one another in book 5 in jest, they will take on a deeper, more devoted sense of friendship in the later books that we are going to read. And this is important to note because these two men truly adhere to the code of honor that is so important in Greek epics, and they are good representations of what that epic hero truly is. Darius, Entellus, and Nares are the boxers and a seer, and then King Acestes, who is the king of Sicily that welcomes Aeneas and his men to their island. As Aeneas is leaving, he sees a fire in the background, and this is the fire of Dido's funeral pyre as she has just killed herself. This certainly is in keeping with coming out of what we have said are such intense books. The even numbered books are full of intensity, whereas the odd number books still may have um, furthering episodes for the plot, but they're not necessarily as intense and deep as some of the even numbered books. Dido has just killed herself, and Aeneas sees that in the background, and it keeps with the theme of the past to the future because Aeneas knows that he must move forward. He cannot stay there, even though he truly wants to, but he's got to keep on pressing on towards his goal and what prophecy and fate has deemed is his mission. The storm that they are encountering as they are traveling to Sicily is reminiscent of the storms and the tumultuous weather that Odysseus experiences during his travels. So this is in part imitation of Homer's writings. When they finally make it to Sicily, they have memorial games such as a boat race, a foot race, when we have the episode with Nisus and Euryalus, a boxing match, and a shooting match. And within the shooting match is the omen of the arrow. As Acestes is shooting the arrow, it immediately bursts into flames and is like a comet or a shooting star. And this turns and is taken by Aeneas as a sign that success is imminent. In contrast to that are the actions of the Trojan women who are being instigated to inciting an uprising basically by Iris on behalf of Juno. Juno is angry that Aeneas and his men have left Carthage because remember, she wants to preserve Carthage. If Aeneas has left, then that means he's on his way to establishing Rome, which inevitably will come back and crush Carthage. So Juno does not want that to happen. So she sends Iris down to instigate these unruly feelings among the women. They set the ships on fire because they are tired of traveling. And it's not until Aeneas prays to the gods and Neptune comes and squelches the fire. Lastly, is the in keeping with the memorial or funeral games is because Anchises has died and it is the 1 year anniversary of his death. And in order to have safe passage on their way to their final destination. And Aeneas prays to the gods, and Neptune says they will have safe passage if they sacrifice one person, and that is the unfortunate soul of Palinurus, who inevitably falls asleep as he is sailing, falls off the ship, and drowns. And this is the payment that Neptune deems necessary. Within the funeral games, it is important to note that they foreshadow, even though they're lighthearted in actions, they do foreshadow more tragic days that are ahead. They are basically juxtaposed between easy days of games versus hard days of battle. With this funeral games, Virgil is borrowing from the style of Homer. If you remember, after Patroclus was killed by mistake by Hector, In mourning his death, Achilles has several days of funeral games. So this is basically a repeat of the actions of Homer's writings. And as usual, there is the importance of the Augustan propaganda, which is noted within this book. Virgil supported Augustus's regime. He wanted to make sure that the rules and the regulations of Augustus's power were brought forth. The book is proof of Virgil's support by giving the leader of Rome lineage to the gods. Augustus's name is actually mentioned, and even though Aeneas may not be aware of who he is at the time, when people were reading this book later, they could then assume that because Augustus is mentioned, he must be someone important from the gods. And then the Romans didn't actually care for athletic contests. They preferred gladiator contests. And because Augustus was trying to promote peace, promote the idea of pacifism, not the unnecessarily killing of people, be it in contest, athletic contests were filled in for that place. And with this, Augustus revived sporting matches around 28 BC in an attempt to make that more popular. Also, his attempt to revive religious rites is repeated over and over by showing that Aeneas, in before anything important was to be done, he either had to pray, to make a sacrifice, to make sure that what he was doing was right in the eyes of the gods. And this was a way for Augustus to try to maintain law and order. If you can keep these people afraid of some big brother or someone larger than them looking down upon them to judge their actions, that is another way in which to keep peace. And that is something that Virgil tried to weave into his writings in order to promote Augustus's ideas.